Gonna say this right out the gate, this review is gonna be spoiler free, cause this movie was highly anticipated by many a moviegoer the world over. So I don't want to ruin it for you, so no spoilers here. I will say, however, that it is pretty much absolutely necessary to watch WandaVision before you see this movie. Like, if you know nothing else about the MCU beforehand, you should watch WandaVision. Yeah, I'd say it is pretty necessary. Alright, let's do it! Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. So, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness is the 28th movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's the 5th movie in its Phase 4, and it's the 11th installment overall in Phase 4. So in this movie, following the events of WandaVision, Loki, Spider-Man No Way Home, Phase 4 of Marvel has been exploring the multiverse. There's really not much I can say about the plot specifically because the trailers were pretty vague. So here's what I'll say the plot is. Doctor Strange and Wong and Scarlet Witch and America Chavez, they embark on a journey through Marvel's multiverse. That's the plot. Now, this was my most anticipated movie of 2022. Cause just the mere concept of the movie, Doctor Strange, awesome visual effects, check. Multiverse? Yeah, that's been an intriguing subject in the MCU in Phase 4 so far. Check. Sam Raimi directing and Danny Elfman doing the score? Check, check. Scarlet Witch, one of my favorite characters in the MCU? Check. Going into this movie, I felt like it could do no wrong. So what do I think of it? It's a pretty fucking sweet movie. It does have some problems, I won't deny that. Like, I will say, I think Spider-Man No Way Home is better than this. I think Moon Knight's better than this. But of course, I still had a damn great time with this movie. Benedict Cumberbatch as Doctor Strange is still perfect, like 10 out of 10 casting. Who else could play that character as well as he does? And in this movie, it's interesting to see, like, his place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. He's a sorcerer, so he deals with all the really weird shit. But also where he is in his life right now concerning his loved ones, like Christine Palmer, played once again by Rachel McAdams. Yeah, it was nice to see her again in a Marvel movie for the first time in like 6 years, if you don't count What If. Of course, one of the things I was looking forward to the most in this movie, Scarlet Witch. And you've heard by now, and it's absolutely true, she pretty much steals, I won't say she steals the movie, you know what, she does. It's just true. As much as I would like to say, oh, it's Doctor Strange's movie, Scarlet Witch really is just as prominent as him. And she was awesome in this movie, man. Her story arc is so, like, you get it if you watched WandaVision. And it doesn't hurt to watch everything she was in before that. Cause you totally understand where she's coming from. And plus, I think Elizabeth Olsen's acting here is the best she's ever been in the MCU so far. I just totally bought every scene she was in. And of course, visually, oh my god. Just some really amazingly creepy and cool scenes involving Scarlet Witch here. The one character I will admit who kinda let me down in this movie was America Chavez. Cause I know this character from certain other Marvel lore, and she's a really cool character. She is a powerhouse just like Doctor Strange, but beyond that, her personality and characteristics and mannerisms, they're really unique and fun. In this movie, I felt like she didn't have a lot of time to shine. Visually, sure, we do get to see her powers, and they are really cool looking. But as for her personality and her mannerisms, I felt they were a bit lacking. I'm not gonna say what her powers are because that is kind of a spoiler. They weren't really revealed or touched on in the trailers. But I will say that because of the powers she has, this character really, she felt more like a plot device than a character. And I hate to say that. Like, I feel like Sam Raimi and Michael Waldron were like, alright, we need something in this movie that can do something. How about instead of an object, we have a character do that instead? Yeah, that's kind of what it felt like. But, hopefully this won't be the last we see of her in the MCU, and hopefully she will have more character development in later MCU entries that she's in, if she is in any, which she should be. Another thing about this movie that all the reviews are saying that I will absolutely agree with is that, yes, Sam Raimi's horror gothic style fingerprints are all over this movie, and that is awesome. This being a Doctor Strange movie, we already know that we're in for some pretty trippy, badass visual effects. They were in the first Doctor Strange movie. And every Marvel thing that Doctor Strange has been in, Infinity War, Endgame, Spider-Man No Way Home, there have always been some really cool, trippy, badass visual effects. That's just the nature of his character. So let's have a Doctor Strange movie with Sam Raimi's horror gothic vibe sprinkled in there. Actually, not even sprinkled. He pretty much blasts it in there. If you're a Sam Raimi fan, if you love Evil Dead or Army of Darkness, Drag Me to Hell, then you will love this movie. Hell, even Raimi's Spider-Man movies had a little bit of horror vibe in certain scenes. That's just Raimi's style. And man, some of the imagery in this movie, I was like, yep, that's some pretty frightening ass imagery. That's creepy. That is cool. And also, this movie does push the boundaries of violence in the MCU. Yes, it is rated PG-13, and I remember when this movie was first announced back in Comic-Con of 2019, when Kevin Feige announced that this was going to be the first scary MCU movie, someone from the crowd shouted, "Rated R!" Kevin Feige heard that and said, "No, it's going to be PG-13 and you're going to like it." When I first saw that, I was like, oh shit. Alright, Feige, what do you have in store for us? This movie has some pretty damn violent scenes for PG-13. In fact, there's one scene in particular where I was like, that's pretty rated R. Like, that thing that just happened, I can't believe they let that slide. Like, of all the hundreds of PG-13 movies that I have seen in my life, this is one of the ones that pushes the closest to R as it possibly can. Which is awesome! Because, of course, myself being an adult male who loves cool-looking shit, there is a part of me that thinks there are a lot of PG-13 movies that could benefit from being rated R. For some, it would make it better. For some, it would just make it look cooler. I wouldn't mind seeing a rated R version of this movie. It's really good as PG-13, but rated R, I feel like that's what this movie was meant to be. That's how violent some of the action scenes get here. And of course, this being a new MCU movie, there is that element of surprise, shock factor. Again, I'm gonna be as vague as I possibly can, spoiler free, but you know, some things you saw in the trailer, you're like, oh my god, wait, that's gonna be in the movie? Yeah, things like that are in this movie. But honestly, I feel like that's where my biggest, I guess, issue with the movie is. Because with these shocking things we see in the movie, you think, alright, they might be like a prominent role in this movie. Kind of like Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield were in Spider-Man No Way Home. But here in Multiverse of Madness, it's not really like that. The surprising things really aren't in this movie for too long, and I will admit that did kind of let me down. Probably because I was so surprised, shocked, and happy to see these things in the movie. I was like, oh my god, it's that! And I walked out going, I wish we could have seen that more. I don't know, maybe I'm just being greedy. But the fact is that these surprises are just not as relevant to the story of this movie as I thought they would be. I guess I brought that on myself. As for the score, the musical score, a lot of people are raving about Danny Elfman's score in this movie. And yeah, of course, Danny Elfman being one of my favorite composers of all time, he brings his Danny Elfman touch to this movie, of course, with the choir and those fast string ostinatos in the background. Yeah, it's awesome, epic, badass Danny Elfman music. But that being said, there was not a lot of that original Doctor Strange theme, you know, Michael Giacchino's theme. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, I don't think I heard that in this movie, like, at all. Maybe I heard, like, half of it once, but that did kind of bum me out because I love that theme and I missed it here. Again, that has nothing to do with the plot or construction of this movie, but myself being a film score nerd, I just had to address it. I mean, there is one scene in this movie involving music, I was like, this is amazing. You'll know it when you see it, you'll be like, yep, that's the scene Andy was talking about, cause it's great. In the end, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, it's a blast. The characters are awesome for the most part. America Chavez did kind of let me down. But I love the story in this movie. I love the horror gothic elements. That's where this film really shines. That's really what you remember the most walking out of this one. Danny Elfman's score is great, although it did miss that theme that I love. But it is still pretty damn good. And the shocking surprises could have been more relevant. But of course I will see this movie again. It's a great time. It's a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. It's Doctor Strange. That'll be a reliably fun time at the cinema. For Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, I will say, go see this movie while it's in theaters. And of course, I will be making a spoiler-filled video about this movie. It might not be till Monday because I do have plans this weekend, but we'll see what happens. So, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Have you seen it yet? What do you think about it? Whatever you think, go ahead and leave a comment. And of course, thank you for subscribing. Peace.